afterwards, and then you catch yourself like in the middle of it. Excuse me, I catch myself afterwards, and I catch myself in the middle of it, and then eventually I can catch myself right whenever it starts to happen. And the way that I really developed this technique is that I started paying attention to my emotions. I started paying attention to the physiological effects that took place in my body when I was feeling attacked, and when I was feeling threatened, and when I was feeling scared, and when I was feeling nervous and anxiety. When I'd start to kind of feel that kind of feeling inside me, instead of just feeling that and attacking. I'm like one of the most passive people. I'm so like not a high, over the top, dramatic person in a negative way. I'm pretty dramatic whenever you get me like fired up, but when it comes down to, I'm just not one of those like really violent kind of attacking type people. But when I think about how my mind is, my mind's like this huge bear that'll just eat up whatever is in its sight just to keep me safe. It's really interesting. So when I feel that stuff climbing up inside of me, instead of just buying into that story that my mind's made up to keep me safe, I can use that kind of feeling and that emotion, like what happened last week, when I started feeling like that anxiousness, which actually didn't even come up for me. It didn't even come up for me. And I love that. I love it because it just is confirmation to me of how much I've been able to manage my emotional state and be able to stop and really assess the situation for what is the truth instead of getting caught up in the facades and the masks that we kind of put up and the illusions that happen. When I started paying attention to that emotion inside me and the physiological effects, now whenever I feel that start to come up, instead of using it as an excuse or a reason to just kind of play out what I'm feeling, instead I use it as an indicator. It's like my warning light, because I start to feel that tightness in my chest. Usually it's like a tightness in my chest. To get a little bit about the energy houses of the body, we have 7 chakras or 7 energy houses from like our core level, like right at the bottom of our torso up to the top of our head. And here in the center of the chest is our heart chakra. And our heart chakra is connected energetically to our emotions, our fears, our joys, all of the emotional stuff comes right here, the heart chakra. Right below that is our solar plexus, and this is like our self-esteem storehouse. This is like, where you get your own personal inner strength from. So when I started noticing, I get most of my tightness here in my chest, so it's mostly fear-based stuff. And if I get like kind of like that sock in the gut, that instant like stomach clenching up, that's an indication that I don't feel that I am fully equipped to deal with the person that I'm facing. I don't feel confident in my ability to face them. So it's not so much like a fear, I'm scared I'm going to die, it's I feel inadequate. Luckily, or for me now, I wouldn't even say necessarily luckily, but for me now, majority of my stuff comes here at my chest. So when I talk about my anxiety and this emotion, I'm going to be pointing here because this is where I feel it. So just kind of start to register. Do I feel tightness in my chest? Am I feeling like kind of closed up here? Or do I feel all of a sudden really nauseous and really sick? And that will give you a little bit more clue on what's driving, what that person or that event that's triggering you, how it's really triggering you. Is it triggering your fears, or is it triggering your self-esteem, like your self-worth, your abilities, your competency, that kind of thing? So when I start to feel that anxiety, to me, I call it anxiety, and I guess that's what like a clinical diagnosis would be of it. But I feel a tightness in my chest, and I feel like it's hard for me to breathe, and I feel like I have to really kind of pay attention to breathe, and I feel kind of tightening up, like I'm kind of closing up and kind of protecting myself, and I feel like this nervous kind of energy, and I feel this uneasiness, and I don't like how it feels, and then my mind starts like spinning and racing. I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but this is what happens to me. I don't like how that makes me feel. So instead of buying into that, I use it as an indicator to make a different choice. I don't want to experience what's going to happen if I react to it, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to make a different choice, one that serves the big overall picture instead of just this moment. And to do that, I have to get to the truths that I know, the beliefs that I know to be true, and not what my mind is predicting might happen to keep me safe. Our minds are a negative future prophesizing machine. All our mind does is make up stories about what might happen so that you stay safe. So if you think about like touching a stove and burning yourself, then the next time that you see that stove, your brain automatically says, hot, don't touch it. Now, if you just listen to that, you're never going to touch another stove again in your life. But if you get down to what you know to be true, okay, I know that it can only be hot if the knob's on or if the eye's glowing red. So let me check those things first. Then you can kind of go through like a little mental checklist, and then you can make a decision about what's really going to serve you overall is not totally staying away from a stove and never touching one again in your life. It's going to be knowing how that stove works and understanding when the knobs are turned a certain way, then that's when it's safe and that's when it's not safe. Everything works that same way. But you just have to be aware. And if you're just in this autopilot, this reaction mode, then you might miss it. Chances are you probably will miss it. You'll make it not an instinct, because we get those too, but it's more a reaction, just that knee-jerk reaction that happens, which is part of our mechanism. So if we're attacked, we can attack back, you know, and we don't have that, oh wait, let me think about how to handle this situation. No, you can just get into that reaction. But the problem is that the majority of people are in this reactive state the majority of the time around people, places, and situations that aren't attacking us. So we end up attacking each other. And we both feel justified, and we both feel very, very much right for how we reacted. And we can take our perspective and we can go over to our friends and family and say, listen to this, and let me tell you what the scenario was like. And we can set the picture up from how we were feeling and what's happened in us, and we can give our perspective. And everybody's like, gosh, that's crazy. I can't believe that that happened to you. That other person must be horrible. Meanwhile, that other person is going over to their friends and their loved ones and saying stuff from their perspective. And there's some things that don't have to be said because we have this you know me, so you know how I am, so I don't have to defend myself. So since you know who I am, how I am, and I explain from my perspective how I saw things this way, you can buy into it. And then you think that I'm the victim and that the other person is the most horrible person. So then we both are just sitting here hating one another and thinking that each other is totally right and justified and not perfect, but justified from our perspective, and that the other person's just evil. If that was really the case, then we wouldn't have people around us that really loved and cared about us.
Don't that kind of relate to insecurity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you feel the need to justify your situation, you don't feel secure about it. When I hit a point in my life that the foundation that I stand on and that I make choices and decisions on is so solid and so unshakable that you can throw a hurricane right through me and it's not going to waver me, I don't have to argue myself. That's how somebody can get angry and be yelling at me and I stay calm, cool, and collected. Because I know that all that anger is just a facade. It's just an illusion. It's if you have to express yourself in an intimidating way and prove to me why you feel the way that you feel, I know that it's unfounded. And I know that when you are in your truth, you don't argue with me. It's like telling somebody I love you. Well, then prove it. How are you going to prove it? How one person expresses or receives love is going to be different than somebody else. So if to me, flowers every day means that you love me, and you're not bringing me flowers every day, does that mean that you don't love me? No. It just means that I'm not receiving love from you the way that I receive love. And maybe to you, what makes you feel love is somebody saying, I think you're nice, or I think you're kind, or I think you're awesome, paying you compliments. And what if I'm not paying you compliments, but I'm bringing you flowers every day? And you're like, why do you keep bringing me flowers? Can't you just tell me that you love me? And I'm like, why is he ungrateful for the gifts that I'm bringing him? Can't he see that I love him? If we're not speaking the same language, you're wasting your time. It's like having someone who fluently speaks French and somebody who fluently speaks English. You know, there might be a word or two that's kind of common, but if you're not speaking each other's language, they could be saying, I love you in French, you could be saying, I love you in English, and all the French person is thinking is, why didn't he just tell me that he loves me? Why does he hate me? Why is he refusing to communicate with me? You know what I'm saying? We're all speaking our own language.